Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the latest in the Railbookers presentations. Today, looking at our top 5 scenic rail holidays that you can take in the year ahead. My name is Anna Davis, and I'll be your host for our time together today. So thanks again for taking the time to sign in and be with us. And let's make a start. So I know some of you listen to our webinars relatively often, but we may have some newer viewers with us today. So I'm just going to start with a very brief overview about Railbookers generally before we talk about some of those fantastic top scenic rail holidays to consider. Just a few things I wanted to point out on this slide. First of all, is that our team are a team of experts. We've been creating these independent, tailor-made holidays now for a long time, and that means that we have a lot of expertise to make suggestions, recommendations about the best routes for you to take. The other thing that makes us really unique in the sphere of rail travel is that you can book these trips up to 2 years in advance, right the way through to 2023 and into 24 indeed now. So that means that you can book for this year or next year or even into the beginning of 2024. They are very flexible, our holidays. They are your holiday to create really for you specifically, with everything in it that you want and nothing in it that you don't. And if the train goes there, we can build a holiday around that. So do bear that in mind as we go through the itineraries and the trips in this presentation. And hopefully this presentation will also give you an idea of sort of the breadth of our holidays and the choice that you have available from our holidays to create exactly what you're looking for. So just a few things to bear in mind as we go through. If you are at the trip planning stage for your next trip, as things are starting to open up, perhaps you're looking for some inspiration and some ideas, we do have a number of digital brochures on our website that you can download to have a flick through, from our worldwide trips to our UK-based holidays, from our sister brand Amtrak Vacations for North America, as well as some luxury options as well in our luxury rail journeys trip. So lots of different brochures to help with your planning decisions to give you some additional ideas. I also just wanted to mention that whilst our holidays are independent and you do travel autonomously with the option to really have the trip that you want specifically, you're not entirely alone when you travel. You do have a 24-hour support number. And you are being supported by global offices. We have offices in North America, in both USA and Canada, as well as here in the UK and in Australia. So there's always somebody awake in the Railbookers team and always somebody that can assist should you need any help whilst you are travelling. These are just some of the rail partners that we work with worldwide to create very much a one-stop shop for our holidays. If you've ever tried to book rail tickets yourself, you'll know that there are lots of different systems, lots of different languages, and we take all of that complexity away from you, but also booking the hotel accommodation, sightseeing, excursions, transfers, ferries, flights as well in some of our longer haul packages and indeed our European trips. So we create very much every element of the trip that you need, as well as obviously the rail journey. So without further ado, let's launch into our top 5 scenic rail holidays to consider in the year ahead. I'm going to start with a real classic from Railbookers, and this is our classic Glacier and Bernina Express, taking in 4 nights, 5 days in Switzerland. Hard to think of a country that does scenic rail travel better than Switzerland. And this is just one of many itineraries that we have that includes the Glacier and Bernina Express, arguably 2 of the most iconic rail journeys in the world. So this is based on a 4-night, 5-day trip with a starting price of £1,449. You can see from the screen there that this is based on rail travel to Switzerland. So you'll take the Eurostar from London to Paris and then travel on the high-speed TGV services from Paris directly to Basel. Then you'll pick up the Swiss Rail service to Interlaken for 2 nights. And whilst you're in Interlaken, you'll have a day trip on the Jungfraujoch, taking you to the highest railway station in Europe. After your second night in Interlaken, you'll then travel to Brig to pick up the Glacier Express, and you'll do about half of the Glacier Express route. It's not its full route, this Brig to Cour. Its full route is to Zermatt. to Coor, but you'll travel on the Glacier Express partway from Brigg to Coor. You'll then have 2 nights in Coor before taking a day trip on the Bernina Express, and that's done as a round trip. So you'll travel from Coor to St Moritz. You'll pick up Bernina there and travel from St Moritz to Tirano, have some lunch in Tirano before then traveling back on the Bernina Express to return to Coor. You'll then take the train up to Zurich to then fly out of Zurich back home. Now, a couple of things to mention. If you wanted to do this trip as it is, of course you can. So railing out, flying back. If you wanted to rail in both directions and take the high-speed train home out of Zurich back to Paris, and then Paris back to the UK on Eurostar, you can. Equally, if you wanted to fly in both directions to Switzerland and then pick up the train in Switzerland, you can also do that. We can also book train tickets from your local UK station as well, so you can really do the whole thing from your local town if that's your preference. But really, the choice is yours. It's your holiday, so you can start it where you want and use the combination of travel that you prefer. So just a few slides of the destinations and the onboard experience of this magnificent scenery. Interlaken here, as its name suggests, based in between 2 lakes, Lake Brienz, Lake Thun. Beautiful setting. And we use Interlaken a lot for our Swiss trips because it's so conveniently placed on the rail network. And you can do any number of day trips, really, from Interlaken. As I say, on this one, you'll do the Jungfrau yacht up to the top of Europe. As it's called, on the height to the highest railway station in all of Europe. And we do a nice circular trip there, so you don't have the same view up and down. And you'll pass through Grindelwald, for example, then back down through Lauterbrunnen, back to Interlaken. But you can also do any number of day trips from Interlaken up over to Murren, for example, and then take the Schildhorn, famous from the James Bond film. So lots of options, and if you wanted to extend your stay to explore there a little more, then absolutely you can do that. In terms of the scenic rail experience here, this is the Glacier Express, so this is the first of those 2 iconic scenic journeys that you'll take. It's nicknamed the slowest express train in the world, and as with many of the Swiss scenic rail journeys particularly, lots of highs and extremes in this, lots of winding track through the valleys, climbing higher. You'll snake round the edges of the mountains, and on this one, then you'll end up on the top of the glacier and sort of glide along the glacier before you come back down again. It's a really special journey, one that I've done myself a few times, and actually, I have to say it's great at any time of the year. It doesn't run in November and December, but I have done it myself in February, May, and October. Lots of different options to see, the alpine flowers in full bloom in May, still a lot of snow, obviously still in February, but even on the top in the summer, you'll still see snow on the glacier. So a really, really special journey to take. And your accommodation on board, well, Glacier Express have refurbished all of their trains internally. So this is standard class, for example. You can see in standard class, you have really comfortable seats. You have those great panoramic windows with those great views out either side and above your head as well. And that's replicated in first class, although the seats then change from a 2-seat, an aisle and a 1-seat because they're slightly wider. And there is also excellence class on the Glacier Express, which has a seat on either side, and everybody has a window seat in excellence class. So lots of options to consider, but standard class also incredibly comfortable and gives you the option very easily to take in those fantastic views. So you'll travel to Coor, Switzerland's oldest city, and you have 2 nights there as a base before the following day you'll take the Bernina Express on that day trip. Another magnificent rail journey. The track, the route itself, UNESCO World Heritage protected. I do say this often, but there's often an argument within our teams about whether the Glacier or the Bernina is more scenic, which one is more spectacular. The good news is on this trip you don't have to choose and you can make your decision, but they're both fantastic journeys to experience. And the scenery, again, on the Bernina, just an example here of some of the magnificent scenery you'll pass when you hit the top before winding back down through the valleys again. So lots of extremes, lots of changing scenery, and all from your very own window seat as you travel. So next I want to take you to Scotland, a little bit closer to home, and a scenic rail journey really to consider if you're looking to stay in the UK in the year ahead would be travelling on the West Highland line on the Jacobite steam train. So this is one of our trips that includes that fantastic journey. This is our Edinburgh and Glasgow via the West Highland line holiday. It's an 8-day trip with a starting price of £949. So this starts in London, and you'll travel overnight on the Caledonian Sleeper, and you will travel up to Fort William on the Highland line, and you're based in Fort William for a 2-night stay. And whilst you're in Fort William, you do take that day trip on the West Highland line between Fort William and Mallaig on the Jacobite. It's the Jacobite steam train if you're travelling between April and October. If you're travelling outside of that time, you can still travel on the line. The scenery is as spectacular on the track with a sort of scheduled ScotRail service instead. And then you'll come back down to Glasgow. You have a 2-night stay in Glasgow, and then also 2 nights in Edinburgh as well. And we do include some sightseeing there. For example, we have a skip the line entrance to Edinburgh Castle. One thing also to mention about our sightseeing is that you can also adjust that as well. So if, for example, you are a foodie and you'd like to do a secret food tour in one of these cities, or perhaps here you'd like to enhance the trip and do a private whiskey tasting, for example. There are lots of things we can do again to give you those options to really add extra bits into your trip if you wish. So just a brief view of the Caledonian Sleeper on this scenic rail holiday. The Caledonian Sleeper, effectively a new train in 2019, brand new rolling set, and it wasn't travelled on very much in 2020, so still relatively new inside, really, really comfortable, a great way to start any trip north of the border. And you have a number of options in terms of the sleeping accommodation. This is the classic room. There is classic, club, and the Caledonian double. Classic and club, very similar with the upper and lower berth. But the club also has ensuite facilities for that little bit of extra comfort. And you also have the Caledonian double to choose from. So there are 2 full-size double-bed cabins on the Caledonian Sleeper on each service. They are typically very popular, but if you're looking to start that journey in an extra special way, then the Caledonian double is certainly one to consider. You do also have the use of the Caledonian lounge car and the bar, fully stocked bar on the service, as well as fantastic food cooked fresh to order by the chefs on board, really showcasing some fantastic Scottish produce as well. So you'll then, as I say, travel up to Fort William, and that's your base for 2 nights. And during one of those days, you'll take the day trip from Fort William up to Mallaig on the Jacobite steam train if you're travelling between April and October. Jacobite steam train now also synonymously linked to Harry Potter and the Hogwarts Express. Here it is going over the Glenfinnan viaduct. This is an 84-mile round trip, and arguably in the top 3 probably scenic rail journeys in the world, I think, as voted for. And another journey of some real extremes, really. You'll pass the highest mountain in the UK, you'll pass the deepest freshwater lock, you'll travel through the most westerly railway station. So lots of contrasts on the journey, and you also have a couple of hours in the beautiful coastal spot of Mallaig at the other end before you then travel back to Fort William. And it's certainly one that's been really popular for customers over the last 18 months or so. On board, you have the option of standard class or just a sneak peek at first class if you fancied treating yourselves to an upgrade here. The first class seating really comfortable, and you can also pre-order afternoon teas to be delivered to your seat during the journey as well. If you're perhaps wanting to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary that way, then do talk to our rail experts, because we can help customize that trip as well. So you'll then, as with a lot of our holidays really, have that fantastic scenery, the wide open spaces of Fort William, Mallaig and the Highlands, combined with some stays in some iconic cities. And here you have 2 nights in Glasgow and 2 nights in Edinburgh. The Kelvin Grove Museum, a real treasure trove, to be honest. I visited there a couple of years ago. All sorts of fantastic things to while away a few hours in there. And then you also have 2 nights in Edinburgh. And as I mentioned, you do get the skip the line entrance to Edinburgh Castle. Moving slightly further afield, wanted to take you to Canada next for our third Scenic Rail holiday to go through this morning. And this is our ultimate Canada coast-to-coast trip, a 17-day trip starting from £3,249. And this will take you all the way from Halifax all the way through to Vancouver, travelling on board Via Rail, the National Railway of Canada. So, as I say, you'll start in Halifax, you'll then move through to Quebec City, to Montreal and Toronto. Be based in Toronto for 2 nights, and whilst you're there, you have a day trip out to Niagara Falls. Then the real scenic rail part of the trip begins as you travel on Via Rail's flagship service, really, the Canadian, and that will take you through from Toronto. It does run all the way through to Vancouver for 4 nights. Initially, you're on this for 3 nights, though. From Toronto to Jasper. You'll break the journey in Jasper with a 2-night stay there, and then to Banff for a further night before then climbing back on the rails in Jasper for that final night on board Via Rail, taking you through to Vancouver for a 2-night stay. As I mentioned, if you wanted to add additional nights in any of these destinations, that's entirely possible if you wanted to stay for longer at the end. And we do have a huge number of Canadian holidays that also combine the Rocky Mountaineer. So if you wanted to travel across Canada with Via Rail into the Rockies and then pick up the Rocky Mountaineer for the final leg to round the trip off with an extra special journey into Vancouver, that's also something that we can help with. Just looking through some of those fantastic scenic destinations, and as I say, you'll start in Halifax on the far eastern coast of Canada, a fantastic resort for seafood, I'm told. If you are a seafood lover, you will not be disappointed in Halifax, and you will be spoiled for choice of where to eat. And when you're in Toronto, of course, you have a full day trip out to Niagara, a boat trip on the Maid of the Mist, and also lunch in the town of Niagara as well. It's also a fantastic place to explore beyond the falls as well. Then you'll travel overnight on board Via Rail, and we'll have a look at that shortly, to Jasper in the heart of the national park there, before then completing the journey to end up in Vancouver for the final 2-night stay of your trip. Just a little look at the onboard accommodation options, what your journey will be like when you travel on board this scenic trip on board the Via Rail services. Just wanted to show some of the onboard accommodation. So you have the choice of several levels of accommodation on board. Starting with this is economy, very much similar to a sort of first-line airline seat, fairly wide, does recline, pretty comfortable, and certainly a great option for a budget option, but still very comfortable to do. The vast majority of our customers will, though, opt for one of the sleeping accommodation, and the most popular for us are either the cabin for 2, or the prestige cabins, which I'll show you in a moment. The cabins for 2 here, as you can see, have the armchair seating during the day, which are then converted into an upper and lower berth for your evening sleep. You have a wash basin, you have a car attendant, as you see there, delivering coffee and drinks during the journey. We also have the option, though, to upgrade to prestige, and prestige is the highest accommodation type on board Via. This also has a double bed in it, like the Caledonian double. And you see here, obviously converted into the bed for the evening. During the daytime, this converts to sort of an L-shaped sofa around the edge of the cabin with that fantastic view out of your picture window. The cabins are fully insulated with wall heating. They are also the only accommodation type on board Via that's fully en suite as well. So you have all of your own en suite facilities inside your cabin. Not just the bedroom that is the perk of travelling on board Prestige, though, as well, because you do have access to the Prestige lounge car at the back of the train, as you see here, with those fantastic views from a slightly different perspective whilst you travel. And you do have access to the bar that backs onto that as well. And very often during the journey, you will have people come on board and talk about local wildlife, local history. They also sometimes do wine tasting in this area as well. So lots of things to do whilst you're traveling through Canada on board. There's also the dome car for any customers to use, regardless of whether you're in economy or the sleeping accommodations or prestige. Everybody can have this change of scene traveling in the dome car. And you also have the onboard dining experience on Via Rail. And one of the major benefits of taking one of the sleeping accommodation types is that your meals on board Via Rail are included in the cost of the trip. And the meals are fantastic on board Via, again, cooked by chefs, fresh to order. And the menu very much reflects the different areas of Canada that you're traveling through. And the menu changes daily. And of course, they can accommodate any special dietary requirements as well. Moving back slightly this way, then, wanted to share with you our next scenic trip, which includes travelling on the Flamsbana, again, one of the world's most scenic railways, the Flam Railway in Norway. This is our Grand Flamsbana and the Fjords of Norway, a 10-day holiday with a starting price of £2,660. This is a round trip in and out of Oslo, based on flights from the UK to Oslo, and then travelling up, as you see, from Oslo up to Myrdal and then up to Flam, based in Flam for 2 nights, and you'll travel on the Flam Railway whilst you're there. You then have a number of scenic cruises during the trip out on the Aurlandsfjord, the Osterfjord, the Hardangerfjord, lots and lots of really, really beautiful cruises during this trip. And then you also have a 3-night stay in Bergen. So again, as with the previous trips, it's really combining fantastic scenery, fantastic iconic city stays, and some real rail highlights whilst you are travelling. Here's the beautiful town of Flam, where you're based for 2 nights, and it's whilst you're there that you'll travel on this, the Flamsbana, the Flam Railway, and as I said, I think it was not that long ago voted in the top 3 of the most scenic rail trips in the world. And again, you have a journey of real contrast as you travel through, just a few shots here, past the waterfalls, through the valleys and out to the fjords as you travel down. And just here, the Njøfjord, just to give you an idea of some of those cruise views from the water. And I think it's always very special to travel on the water to see the fjords up close and personal. You then also have 3 nights in Bergen towards the end of the trip before you then travel back to Oslo for the flight home. Should add, if you wanted to take the journey by rail, then it is possible. Just will take a few days extra, but we can absolutely accommodate that as a rail round trip as well. So lastly but not leastly, wanted to end with a coast-to-coast across the USA scenic rail journey. And we have access to all of Amtrak's stations in the US, just over 500 of them, to put together exactly the same sort of tailor-made personal holiday for you. And the coast-to-coast across the USA trip here, taking you from New York all the way through to San Francisco, takes you through some absolutely spectacular scenery, traveling primarily on the Southwest Chief. The Southwest Chief is the main service in the middle of the itinerary between Chicago and Los Angeles, and that will take you through 7 different states, stopping at the Grand Canyon on the way. So you'll start with a 3-night stay in New York before traveling down on a daytime service to Washington, D.C. for a 2-night stay there. You'll then travel overnight on board Amtrak from Washington, D.C. through to Chicago, have a 1-night stay there, or longer if you wish to extend. And then you'll pick up that Southwest Chief service traveling overnight from Chicago through to Williams in Arizona. You have a 1-night stay in Williams, traveling up to the Grand Canyon on the Grand Canyon Railway, with a stay in the Grand Canyon as well, before then traveling back down to Los Angeles for a stay, and then up to San Francisco. So you're traveling on some of the most iconic rail trips in the USA on this. You've got the Southwest Chief and the Coast Starlight along the California coast. So a fantastic trip to consider. The Southwest Chief traveling through the Red Rocks of Arizona, and the Coast Starlight, as I say, it really wraps its way up and down the California coast. So again, a real journey of different scenery, of contrasting scenery, and spectacular as you travel. Onboard Amtrak, just to give you an idea of your experience traveling on board the train, this is the Amtrak's observation carriage, which all customers can use for a slightly different change of scenery with those fantastic picture windows as you travel. Like Via Rail, there is also a coach or standard class option to consider. Again, reclining seats, luggage space above your head, those seats recline as well. But again, the most popular for our customers would be to take either a roomette here, one of the bedroom accommodation types, which during the day is those two armchairs facing each other. And then during the evening, your car attendant will turn those into the upper and the lower berth for you to sleep. So that is what that looks like during the evening. And you have shared facilities in that carriage, your toilet, wash basin, shower. Between that carriage, typically 5 or 6 roomettes will share those, and the car attendant keeps those really, really clean, tidy, and available for customers. If you wanted your own ensuite sleeping accommodation, then the bedroom is the one to consider for that. It's a larger cabin. It has an armchair that remains in the cabin day and night, as well as that upper and lower berth. The lower berth is also slightly wider in the bedroom, and you do have your own toilet, shower, and wash basin included. And that's the bedroom during the day. Another view of the observation carriage there as you travel through. And there is also the onboard dining carriage. Again, on Amtrak, meals cooked fresh to order by the chefs. The breakfast pancakes are phenomenal. The steaks for dinner are fantastic, and a really great way to meet some of your fellow travellers. And it's always quite interesting to see where everybody is travelling from onboard Amtrak. It's a really social way to travel and interact with other people going. I mentioned the Grand Canyon Railway in passing. So this is a really unique way to enter the Grand Canyon National Park. And not everybody aware that it's possible to do that on the rails, but you can travel from Williams right through to the heart of the Grand Canyon National Park on the Grand Canyon Railway here. It takes about 2 hours. You have your own host in each of the carriages that will talk you through the history of the line, the scenery that you're traveling from through, and also, most importantly, let you know when you get your first peak of the fantastic Grand Canyon National Park here. So would highly recommend that as a completely different way to travel in and out of one of these magnificent national parks in the US. So that rounds up our very brief roundup of our top 5 scenic rail holidays with Railbookers. Hope that's given you some ideas and inspiration for your travels in the year ahead. If you would like any more information, you do have the questions box to send us a question in, and we can come back to you. Alternatively, give us a call on 020 780 2222, and we will be very happy to answer any questions you have and pop together the next dream trip with Railbookers. Thanks very much for your time. I hope you stay safe, stay well, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.